Hello. So I wrote a book called Surfing the Blackwave, a bit of a board sport guy. I love sports, but there's a sport that's a little bit crazy, and that's these big wave surfers. So I study them. I am not one. And one of the phenomenons of the Blackwave book was the idea that when you have a massive culture shift, a massive technology introduction, you have to get on the wave. You have to ride the wave because there's an opportunity. But at the same time, it's a black wave. It's so big, it's so dark, it's pulling the soot up from the ground, and ultimately it has danger involved. And right now we're facing a black wave. The black wave today is AI. I'm sure half the sessions you're going through are talking about AI. We're not going to have the same conversation about AI today. It's going to be a little bit different. You're going to see some practical applications. And it's going to be a little bit about the heart of a marketer and how that needs to be retained in the middle of technology. How we need to remember that it's not just about the tech, it's about the fact that we're making human connections. And if we do these human connections correctly, the tech can scale that. If we do it incorrectly, the tech can work against us and make us look really cold and disinterested in our customer. So surfing the black wave. Our background, I have started an agency about 33 years ago. We've worked with a lot of brands. We've had experience in both finance, healthcare, franchising. We've learned that there's a lot of data out there, a lot of learning from what works, and we've been obsessing about it. And one of the things we've come to the conclusion of, most people will tell us, I know at least half my advertising works, I just don't know which half. And that is a common statement. It's been around for centuries, to be honest, and Henry Ford was the last to have notably said it. And we see the same problem with our clients. We're meeting with people out at the table tonight, and they're saying, yeah, I want to have data. I want to know, is my top of funnel working? Is my mid-funnel working? Can I personalize? Can I stay HIPAA compliant when I'm in healthcare and I want to track and target audiences? How do we do all these things, and how do we do it without wasting money? This is our funnel, and this is a real funnel. This is actually what it might look like in franchising or retail marketing when you're trying to sell something like a pizza. And you're looking to find what is that impression level you need to get down to the bottom of the funnel where you look at your cost per sale. So if it's going to cost me $2.26 to get a new customer, that's ultimately what we want to know. How much does it cost to get a new customer? Cost per acquisition, cost per subscriber. We've got lots of different ways we track this. We want to know what contributed to that, what caused that to actually happen. And a lot of times we give all the credit down at Google because we're using Google Analytics. And guess what Google Analytics is? It's really good at telling you that Google is where you should spend all your money. They performed it. It's top peak capability to understand that Google is doing great for you. But I want to know, what is my billboard doing for me? I want to know what else is my television doing to make a difference. I don't want to just know what Google's doing for me. So we have to build tools and technologies. We have our own tracking pixel. We bring our own ability to build dashboards that aggregate all your media. Not just your digital media, but your out-of-home, other digital and non-digital media sources, to find out what's happening at the top of that funnel to create attribution at the bottom of the funnel. We learned this in franchising, where we had regional markets and we would test certain markets. We would run a campaign in one market with TV. We'd run the same campaign in another market without TV. And we found out that there was all kinds of attribution, and the digital charts were going crazy when we spent all the money on digital. But when you were running TV in a market, sales went up. And the franchisees would say, I got a feeler out, and I just felt it, sales went up. So we started tracking and finding out you need to have top of funnel, or the bottom funnel is just lying to you. It's taking lots of credit for things that aren't actually happening. The problem with marketing, especially digital marketing, is the local level when you're looking at multi-location, whether you're a bank or you're a health system or you're a franchise. You have branches in a bank. You have medical centers in healthcare. And each of these are what we call hyper-local zones. They can be geofenced. They can be targeted. We can actually track your phone as a beacon when a customer or a patient walks into a hospital, walks out, or a doctor or maybe a procurement member that you're trying to reach out to. We can track these things and then target these things. What happens is when you track it, you get a 10x. Actually, 11x is what I've seen at times. 11x more effective when you track, when you have all the pixels, everything set up right. The problem is most people don't have those things set up right. So what ends up happening is a 90% fail rate. If you're not setting all of these things accurately and you're not monitoring, you're not optimizing, you're wasting 90% of your money because you're not getting the 11x you could be getting. So it's important to figure it out how you're going to go about it. Now, when we look at technology, I like this phrase. This phrase was from Toshitaka Katada. This guy was an expert on tsunami. And he wanted to understand, how do you get communities to survive when a massive wave comes? How do you get those communities to thrive? And he's seen tsunami wipe out entire shorelines. So in his study, he learned one thing. He said, you need to train leaders to follow principles, not pathways. What does that mean? Well, he found that if you were to go into communities, you would find that there are students in schools, and they're at risk. They're on the shoreline. And one of the things you can do is teach them, here, follow this pathway if a tsunami alarm happens, and you'll be fine. Well, it turns out the pathway gets destroyed by a tsunami. So don't follow the pathways. You have to follow the principles. And not only that, you have to make sure that these people are not just activating as followers, because there's nobody to follow. Everybody's afraid to get started. Everybody's afraid to run. You have to train them as leaders. You have to say, not only do you have to go out, you have to start, and you have to lead into it. So one of the stories that came from Toshitaka Katada was he learned that waves come in sets of 3. There was a massive earthquake that was distanced from Hawaii, and on the shoreline of Hawaii, there was a shoreline that you saw the water receding, and the fish were flopping. And it was after there was one big wave, then there was another wave, and then the water kind of rushed out over the shore, over the horizon, and the fish are flopping. And people started gathering to see, what's this phenomenon, what's going on? They thought the wave was over, and they thought that the ocean was just receding now. Well, it turns out there had been 2 waves, and the third one was coming. And that was what was the sign, that the big wave, the tsunami, was coming. And everyone who came to watch the shoreline, they were taken out into the sea. So one of the things we need to be aware of is there's always more than one round. There's always a shift. And he taught these students at this one school, they call it the miracle of Kamayashi, because Toshitaka said to the students, you need to rise up as leaders. You need to figure out how you're going to change in the marketplace. What happened was the schools on all the shorelines except this one school survived. Scientists and sociologists and even marketers started studying what was this phenomenon about this student base where 100% of the school students lived. And even people within the community, the survival rate was much, much higher than everywhere else in Japan after the Tohoku quake. And it turned out what they were taught and what the students reacted to was this idea of being leaders. They took on this idea that I'm not just going to follow and wait for my teacher to say go. When I see something happening, I'm going to run. I'm going to grab a kid who can't run. I'm going to go to my grandma's house and knock on the door. And these kids ended up saving their entire community. How does that relate to marketing? How does it relate to what we're trying to do? We can make a difference by giving our ambassadors, whether they're the employees, whether they're the customer, or whatever, whether they're yourself, just getting ambitious about what you do, giving meaning, and then you can save lives, you can change the business. So I'm going to talk about 3 waves. The first wave of marketing, it was this, and we've all seen that the Industrial Revolution was the first. It was, thousands of years of being an agricultural society, and all of a sudden, we invent these machines to mass produce. And suddenly everybody has access to lots of things. And so we created the Industrial Revolution because it was technology that enabled it. People who previously could not afford to have a car could have a car because we could mass produce it. A washing machine because we could mass produce it. And so we would sell at that time simply because we had the thing. And we could make coffee and we'd say, we're a transaction to sell a product. We have product. Now you can afford to buy the product, not just the rich people. The second wave changed things a bit. And that's when we moved to the relationships to serve customers. It was the information age. Now we have all this information. We can share it. We can connect. We can have a website. We can have a page. We can tell you what matters. When you walk into a Starbucks now, you have music, and you have the barista, you know their name, and you've got a brand and a position. And all these things kind of evolved, and we started saying, okay, we're going to have brand agencies, and that's where we came from. We started building brands. And yet that was still not enough. There was a new wave coming, and it was different, and it was unique. And it started with social media, and it was called the participation age. And what we mean by the participation age is now everybody has a value about what they're doing. They look at their choices for buying coffee. I could buy coffee at a local gas station, or I could buy coffee at a Starbucks. Why should I spend the extra $3 to come to you? What is the value you bring above and beyond, and additional flavors? That's great. What are you doing in your community? What are the values? What is the social movement that you offer to serve humanity? Because people are realizing they're investing their dollars. They're not just investing dollars in products. They're investing in some sense of values. They want to know that they can trust you as a brand. So what values do you project? They want to look to you and say, do you care about the planet? Do you care about where your dollars are going? Are you making it sustainable? What about the people who harvest your beans? Customers never asked these questions during the industrial age. They didn't ask it during the information age, even though we had information. Now we have a new generation that's evaluating you, your customer base is looking at you and saying, what does your organization stand for? If you do this correctly, you get this phenomenon we call rational advocacy. It's the absurd science of brand love, the sense that people will say, I believe in you so much so I'm going to tell my friends about you. I will wait in line the night before. So Chick-fil-A is a client that sometimes you have a client as an agency that you learn more from than you can teach. Chick-fil-A is an example of that. When we met with them, they said to us, here's the brief. We want you to love the customer. If you love the customer, the chicken will sell itself. So don't sell the chicken. That was the assignment. That we wrote that on the creative brief. Don't sell the chicken. and that was just a change of mindset, because we were not selling the thing, we were selling the brand value. Not only a brand value that they projected, but that people wanted to share. And so when you do that correctly, this is a Chick-fil-A line the night before a grand opening. This is a grand opening event. This is what happens the night before. It doesn't matter if it's snowing, doesn't matter what's going on. You're going to see a line of people camping out the night before to get the same chicken they can get tomorrow. That's not because of a product or price point or promotion. It's not because you had a better pitch. It's because you stood for something that the customer said, I value that. I want what you have to offer. And so it comes down to, did they love the customer enough? Did they create that connection? All kinds of brands build connections. I mean, think about the irrational advocacy in education or in sports, that people will paint their faces for your brand in your brand colors. What a great opportunity. How do we do that for a laundromat? How do we do that in a bank or a hospital? Well, there is a hospital behind this brand. This is the University of Michigan, and their brand is about healthcare. And so we're going to talk about a story that we took this concept through in healthcare and how healthcare can build a brand. A lot of people say, well, healthcare, medicine, how is that a values-based brand? How is that going to be? You're not building an Apple here or a Nike, but you can build a brand with equal value, equal enthusiasm for a brand in healthcare. The reason for that is the customer, when we evaluate, we call this the consumer brain. When we evaluate consumer decision making, it's based on one emotion. And when some people say, well, emotion doesn't make decisions. Oh, yes, it does. Trust. Trust is the most powerful emotion. And it's built on two factors. On the left side of the brain, it's, I want to know, the customer's telling you, I want to know, do you have the competency? Can you do a surgical procedure or offer me the right medicine? And that's about features and benefits. Here's our doctors, here's our credentials, here's all the good things we do. Now, on the right side of the brain, we're evaluating how your eyebrow lifts, the amount of smile you have when you talk, the confidence in your voice, and your values and your vision. And that's how our brain works. We are not a rational being. We are an irrational being. We are emotional beings rationalizing our decisions. 70% of our decision process is actually around emotion. And I want to know, not only do you have the competency, do you have the character? Will you deliver on your promise? And the customer's looking at that at multiple dimensions. So we then created a study. We started creating data. We started creating information and recommendation engines around emotion, around how people engage with content. And we understood people were connecting on 24 different emotion triggers, and they were connecting on different dynamics. Were you going to be a marriage of convenience? Oh, that's my local community hospital. I wouldn't drive past that hospital on my way to U of M health system. Why would I do that? Well, maybe they're going to save your life if you drive another 20 minutes. Oh, they'll save my life? Yeah, I don't know. It's inconvenient. These are focus groups. I've heard these things before. I remember I was in a focus group with Michigan. One of the things that came up was they said, we said, who's the best? And they said, well, Michigan's the best. Well, okay, why are they the best? Well, they've got the best football team. Well, what about like cancer, heart conditions? You've got all these other health. No. They got the best football team, so they definitely have to have the best doctors. That's how it works. And so this is the consumer brain. It's different than we think it is, and we need to understand the emotional triggers, the connection points that happen. So making data-informed decisions started with this journey. In the journey, we looked at assets that we would put in front of a customer and test them. We called these ad labs, ad-like objects. And certain things, like when you said, hey, by the way, we invented the cure to polio. Anybody interested in that? And there was a lot of people that said, yeah, 64% said, I am amazed, I'm impressed. All these emotional triggers really, really took place there. Other times we said, well, we're a massive medical institution, but we're only 20 minutes away. Different triggers, committed partner, best friend, I think I trust you. So different triggers, but the one that brought it all together was this statement. It was, nothing is incurable. What's the proof point here? What's the evidence? They didn't care. They wanted to know what you cared about. If you believe nothing, they want you, when you walk into that medical facility, they want the doctor to say, you came to the right place. We got this. They just want the confidence that you've got it covered. So we then expanded on, we started testing content. Now, content's shifted. Now we have all this technology with AI. We can make beautiful Super Bowl quality productions that would have blown people away a decade ago. And you can do it in 15 minutes. So now that level of production has kind of dropped and people don't see that value anymore. They're looking at organic and real and heartfelt moments. And so we started testing different things to see what would identify with the customer. And this is the content that connected most of all the various things we tested. As a society, we can achieve these human rights if we accept the proposition that humans are not disabled. A person can never be broken. Our built environment, our technologies are broken and disabled. We the people need not accept our limitations, but can transcend disability. No proof points. There's a lot of visual proof points. But it was our vision, what we believed, what we thought we could do. That was the power that people said, I want to be a part, and I want to go there for my care. And we learned a lot of different things about what people would say. It showed actual patients and results. People don't trust overproduced content. So we're actually reducing that quality sometimes to get people into that sense of real. Very hard to do, getting access to build that type of content. Learning on the left side of the brain, introduce polio is great. Impossible answers are found are great. But the thing that really struck people in the community we were in is unlikely victors and heroes celebrate every day, and nothing is incurable again. And so we came up with a brand profile that looked like this. And the final thing that answered all the questions was Michigan Answers. People said, I want to go where they're confident and I just want an answer. If I get a Michigan answer, it's probably better than a lot of the others that are possibly out there. So we then took that and said, let's emotionalize this into a full production and show what that story might look like to actually tell a story. And a lot of times we want to have a montage, we want to show all these things. Sometimes you just want to simplify. You just want to get into the life of a human, this little one. Get your analysts, use your AI, study your data. But in the end, it's an art. We have to remember, we are artists. We need to tell the story. We need to get human with people, and we need to express it. We need to understand our customer, yes, but we need to understand where they're at in their journey and how to connect with that customer and talk to that customer. And so there's so many points of pain or need or in the know that people want to be in. And one of the things we learned in healthcare is that they just want to stay in the know. They want to be the one with the answer at the dinner table. They want to be the one who they're up on what's going on. And so we believe in content cycles. Who's got content departments at your office where you're making social media, thought leadership content? This is a big part of your business, right? It can be a really complicated and busy part of your business. The problem is they're kind of running over here and making this and running over there and doing a Thanksgiving post, and it's kind of random sometimes, right? And maybe you're a graphics services department for the organization, and everybody's coming to you saying, I want this told, or I want that told. And so that becomes complicated. You want a cycle, you want a system, so that it's all working together. We have this statement that says, be the water that drips through stone. You might just have that little drip, that's all you got, your budget, but if you're dripping consistently and long enough, water will drip through stone, and you will get that message through. So we said, let's take, instead of a random aspect of all this content being created for Michigan, let's focus it on Michigan answers. Let's take that thing we decided we are and really hone it in. So we learned the number one thing people wanted. They didn't want to know about our split liver transplantations or, our back breakthroughs. They wanted to know, what are the latching issues for breastfeeding? What are some techniques? That was one of the number one things people were looking at. And so we said, well, why don't we just tell people, what's the Australian hold breastfeeding technique? It turns out it's a really nice technique that women should know about. But if you're driving along and you want to see that information, it's sending you to michigananswers.com, why not have the radio host, a local celebrity, interviewing and talking about the question of the day? What's the Australian hold breastfeeding technique? So now you're in the same environment. You're driving, you're hearing, you're seeing. It's coming together. And then I can go to the website, and guess what's on the homepage? Australian hold breastfeeding technique. Now you're building an ecosystem of marketing, but what happens on top of that is you're doing it not only once, not only just for this campaign, you're doing it every day. Because the same message, you can't leave that up all year long. Even a week, it's going to get old. So now we have technology that enables us to be real helpful to our customer. We can give them data. We can be a true thought leader. Now, when you're doing that, you're managing a database. You're managing technology. You're managing automation. Now, a lot of people say, well, what am I going to do with AI? Well, give AI a job to do. This is a job AI can help with a lot because the manual effort of doing this is overwhelming. And so you need technology that's going to help you organize, strategize, and get reviews from people internally to make sure you're staying HIPAA compliant and everything that's going out. So this is the campaign that came together as an ecosystem. When it was all said and done, we ended up with increasing the love measure by 9%. We ended up increasing the trust by 17%, and people were 14% more amazed. So these are real measures, real technology, understanding where we're going with the brand. Is the brand increasing? People said, well, that's important, but what about business? Does that change business? Well, we saw people who saw the ads against the people who did not see the ads, It went from 20 to 37% saying I would switch health systems. It went from 26% to 41% saying I would switch doctors because I saw that ad. And then ultimately, awareness in the market with the third largest marketing budget, significantly lower than the others in the market, had the number one awareness. So what we started learning about technology is that it's a powerhouse for emotional and brand connection. So as an agency, we went from an agency service to a technology, to a platform called AdBox. AdBox is a technology that was built on years of doing things. Like for Chick-fil-A, we built this platform called Center Stage. It's where every Chick-fil-A manager goes online and they learn how to do a daddy-daughter date night or a father-son football night. And they do those events at the stores and they're engaged at a local level. So we said, if we can do this for Chick-fil-A, maybe we can do it for a bank or a hospital. Maybe we can do it for other industries. So we started with this idea of give people the simplicity of push button, get an ad at a local level. So that if a bank, for example, wanted to run a campaign, this is Kasasa checking accounts. They have 600 different banks. They need to make 30,000 different ads for these banks because they all need different disclaimers. They all need different interest rates. They have a massive amount of marketing and everything's localized. And the compliance issues are localized as well. So we said, well, just give them simple tools. So the bank manager, a local marketer in each of these branches can go in there, pick a campaign. Now, you might be running organic. If you don't know and you haven't heard, organic died in, I think it was 2015. They stopped letting the algorithm give you free views, and you couldn't go viral anymore. If they see that you're a brand, they squash you because they want your money. And they said, well, why would we give it to you for free if you're willing to pay? So the brand organic is gone. So what we did is we said, well, let's just give them a tool where your organic manager can go in there and say, well, I want to pick a level, and I want to just run my campaign. So now you can go in there, pick your level, and you say, okay, I'm going to pick one of the ads, and they're corporately approved. So these are all the ads that are approved. But then it sends you into your Canvas editor, and some people are familiar with Canva or the Adobe tools. It's the same kind of thing. But what it does is it gives you the ability to get your AI-generated content, and then you can edit it. It's really that simple, because when you're getting AI-generated content, it comes embedded as a JPEG, and your graphic designer will tell you, I can't edit the thing. I can tell it to make it again, but it's going to make it again, but with 6 fingers. You just keep making it do it wrong over and over. What we're doing is saying, let the organic aspects of AI do what it does well. It'll create concepts and artwork, but then you can go in there and just make a change. And so we can make it based on what you're running in the marketplace, and then we can come back and report on it. We can say, okay, this is working. This is working at such level. We can see the impressions, we can see the conversions, and we can see the click-through rates. Ultimately, so that we can optimize. So we can say this thing is an effective tool. So what we've been learning about AI and about automation is it's a way to scale your brand love. It's a way to give your customers more content so they can see it, give your internal managers, your agency, whichever people are doing your graphic services, a way that makes sure that everybody sees it in a consistent way at every level, at the local level. In some cases, we've done this, and I'm not going to go through all the case studies, but we've done this in the automotive industry where we were giving people who are looking for a Tahoe, we'd show them a Tahoe with 30,000 miles and the price tag on it. We would run 1,000 ads, variant ads, personalized every day, personalized targeting people. And we saw that the ad cost per sale of a generic ad was about $3,000. So I have to spend $3,000 to associate an ad with a sale. That was the average. When we started doing personalized, identified ads that were AI generated, we saw it was less than $200, sometimes as low as $150 to sell a car. So the difference of personalization is significant. You can't justify spending $3,000 to sell a car. Doesn't make sense. You should turn the ads off. When you get it down to $150, now you can sell as many cars as you want. So it's all about getting to that optimized level where it actually makes sense to run ads. And that's what we can do with AI. So I thank you for your time. I'd like to open it up before I step down. Any questions or anybody have any scenarios you'd like to run by us? Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to make them yell. Mike?
I'd just like to say go blue. I've seen Michigan Answers every time I go to Detroit. I see it all the time. But I didn't know that they had that other aspect of the Q&A piece too, because I think that's really brilliant.
Thank you.
And so your database, did AI help create a lot of those questions, or
Great question.
you guys were all
So we are doing, that was done, we started doing this before AI. So we've been doing this for a long time. We started doing healthcare marketing in 1992. And so we've been doing thought leadership content. And more lately, we've been adding more and more. I was just looking at, we were doing a project for NYU this week. And I was just looking at some testing we're doing on a new model where we're sucking in the data from the blog. And so then we take that data from the blog that they recently posted that got approved. It went through 15,000 revisions. You know how that goes. And then we suck that data in and then populate all the ads from that. And the AI was getting very, very on point. What we tried to do, though, is stay more HIPAA compliant because certain language was pre-approved by humans. So we're learning to not let AI run off and do whatever the heck it wants. We're saying, okay, let's just grab specific things that we've said before that were approved before in the language that was approved, and you can use that. And then AI is really good at capturing that. That's what we've been doing more lately in our most recent usage.
Any other questions?
One more question.
Make this one our last one.
Dan, this is great. Thank you for the presentation. The ad box, which you're showing here, is that a proprietary tool which is part of, okay.
Yeah, we built it within the agency. It became such a big part of what we do. We now have broken that out as a separate company, and now we work together with that company, although the same owner, but we've been doing that for a lot of business reasons.
Okay, and then the AI piece is now being added to AdBox.
Correct. We were building AdBox long before AI existed. And so much like you'll see in Photoshop, when you go into Photoshop and you add an AI component where you say, I'd like to expand the background or whatever, because we were already there, we were able to add AI into the system rather than try to build from the ground up, which took decades to kind of get the vision for and dozens of months to get to the level we were at.
Sounds good. Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For,
Absolutely. Thank you.